our Honorable Chancellor, Dr. Asim K. Chauhan, our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. T.B. Sharma, our Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Dr. Padmakali Banerjee, all faculty members, staff, and students. I extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Samir Malhotra on this platform, on this session, Mental Wellbeing in the Time of COVID-19. This unprecedented time of COVID-19 has created a lot of uncertainty around the world, where the environment is such that it is putting a lot of pressure, a lot of fear, worry, stress, anxiety among people, where people are not only they not only have a fear of getting infected from the virus, but also there are many issues associated with this pandemic which nobody has thought of earlier. The Although we are moving from lockdown to unlockdown, but still the movement is restricted as to contain the spread of this virus, where people are not able to meet their friends, not able to meet their relative, they are not able to see their colleagues, and creating this is creating a lot of anxiety also. Work from home has become a norms now. People are Although the people are working from home, but this working from home is also putting a lot of pressure in terms of extending working hours and making it difficult to make a balance between work and home. The another issue I see is a slowdown in economic and business activity, which is creating a fear in the mind of people of temporary unemployment. And so this fear has also increasing pressure on mind, pressure of performance in job. There are already salary cuts. Students and youth, they are also worried as far as their career prospects and future is concerned. So there are so much issues which has probing up, and each one of us in one or another way is facing these issues, and which is creating the overall uh, affecting the overall mental health and well-being of people around us. So this particular session, where mental well-being in time of COVID-19, is going to provide a platform to all participants to have on the ideas that how in this unprecedented time one can look after the mental health and can concentrate on certain issues. So today we have with us our speaker, Dr. Samir Malhotra. Let me quickly introduce our speaker of the day. Dr. Samir Malhotra is the Director of Mental Health and Behavioral Science, Max Group of Hospitals, Max Healthcare. He has been working in the field of psychiatry, psychiatry, psychotherapy, tobacco, alcohol, and drug de-addiction as a clinician, an academician, and a researcher for over 2 decades. Prior to joining Max Healthcare, Dr. Malhotra has been a consultant with the Department of Psychiatry and National Drug Dependence Treatment Center, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and National Health Services, United Kingdom. He is a certified teacher from the postgraduate Deanery of Kent, Surrey, and Sussex, United Kingdom. He has a wide area of assignment to his credit and served as an expert professional in the committee formed by the Honorable Supreme Court of India and National Human Rights Commission and the Justice Verma Committee. As an investigator in WHO and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, and National Institute for Clinical Excellence, United Kingdom, he has contributed several research articles in medical psychiatric field and contribution to WHO manual. Recipient of many coveted awards, he is a member of the National Academy of Medical Science. He has been invited on many forums like European Psychiatric Association, NDTV, to name a few. He has been actively involved in delivering lecture on host of issues such as leadership, interpersonal skill, enhancing focus, coping, motivation, and performance, and many more. Dr. Malhotra, welcome to the forum.
Thank you so much.
Before we start with the session, may I also like to introduce our Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor and Dean Academic, Dr. Padmakali Banerjee. Dr. Banerjee is a thoughtful leader and a leadership coach. A doctorate from University of Delhi, she is a fellow prestigious Somatic Ink Board Society. She has over 26 years of experience in research, teaching, consulting, training, academic administration. Her current research interests include optimism and well-being, curriculum design, and leadership study. She is the recipient of prestigious 2018 Greenville Leadership Award from USGBC for her contribution toward environmental sustainability, and also Award of Excellence from INSPA. the prestigious Indian School Psychology Association for her contribution in the promotion of school psychology. She is the member of the editorial board of SIS Journal of Projected Psychology and Mental Health. Her book, The Power of Positivity, Optimism, and Seventh Sense, published by Sage, is a popular choice globally. Her research model, Paroma, has been registered as a trademark for imparting counseling, education, and training schedule amongst the organization and general public to improve life and ability. She has developed a psychometric test, Optimism Index, a tool to measure optimism quotient popularly used by the corporate. Her dream is to transform the world into a happier place to live in by instilling hope and optimism in today's youth. Ma'am, with this word, may I request you for your opening remark on the topic, please.
Thank you, Dr. Vikas, and a very good afternoon to Dr. Malhotra and to all the attendees. I can see slowly the attendee numbers have gone up, and I love this escalation in numbers. It also talks about the passion that our youngsters have in order to improve their life and living. So, in fact, even before introducing the concept, I thought I think this is such a beautiful platform. And during these months of crisis, the great lockdown, the great social distancing, I think the power of the platform has brought us all together. So let us also look at the good news. And the very recently, I have been talking to in large forums. And yesterday, I was also a part of the European Congress on entrepreneurship. I must share with the entire audience that there has been a thrust now, not only on the startup in the areas of manufacturing, but people today are looking at the social awareness in terms of well-being, mental health. It is taking the front seat. Then I've been also talking to the K-12 school principals and educators and have been taking large number of training programs. What I see is that we have to understand that all of our learners, they're all learners in crisis. None of us sitting here have handled so much of crisis like a pandemic when we were studying in the universities. So I really appreciate, and please treat it as an opportunity to face the world. So people who would be successful tomorrow would be the people who would be grabbing the new opportunities. And at the same time, you need to take care of your own self, your well-being, create a robust network around you where you can talk to whenever you find that you are going to have some kind of an anxiety attack or a panic attack, reach out to people, have enough balance in terms of your sleep cycle, your exercise. These you're reading every day in the newspaper. But what is also very critical is to have these kind of knowledge sessions where you hear from the experts, where you hear, when you talk, you assimilate that, and then you are able to practice. So if you have a good engagement, good, meaningful purpose in life, you would definitely go through these times with much ease and with happiness. So I do not want to take much time today because I'm most eager to listen to Dr. Malhotra. But I must tell you, Professor Malhotra, that Amity University, Haryana, which is a research and innovation driven university, we have two very robust departments in psychology. We call it IBAS, Amity Institute of Behavioral Sciences, and we also have Amity Institute of Clinical Science Psychology, where we offer MPhil in clinical psychology. And large number of my, maybe some of the participants today are attending. And I must tell you, our programs are really sought after. Dr. Vikas Madhukar, who is also a director admissions, will tell you, we have large number of applications coming for admissions. So we'll be very happy that how Dr. Malhotra, who has great background, and I know him professionally, that he's doing great work, and this is nothing but his passion and commitment to the field of psychiatry and psychology that he has come to interact with the students of Amity University. And Dr. Adish Nair and Dr. Vikas Sharma, who is not here in the panel, but they are handling the two departments in psychology. Hopefully sometime we will get an opportunity to take you to interact with them in larger scale. So great, and I feel so happy for the school, Amity Business School. Our students are so smart. They have done great work. And I don't want to mention a few students because I can see updates coming regularly. They are connecting with the rural market, the community around us. They are doing lot of social awareness programs where they're able to create that, understanding. So with these words, I really appreciate your time with us. Very important, valuable time with us. So best wishes to everybody who is attending. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your great words. Over to you, Dr. Malhotra.
First of all, I'll begin with a big thanks for having me here and giving me this opportunity to interact with young minds. And it's a learning experience. Each time that I enter into any such domain, any such platform, I feel it's a two-way learning. So I take home certain lessons, and it's quite a mutual understanding and learning process, which I think is very important in any process of growth and development. Thank you so much, Dr. Banerjee. It's been long. We always wanted to connect, and perhaps this webinar has provided us with a platform. Thank you, Dr. Madhukar, for providing this opportunity, and thank you, Dr. Ranjana, for making it possible. I would also like to thank the Max team who've been working in the backdrop to perhaps make this program possible for us. With those little comments, I begin on this topic. You've already set the ball rolling, Dr. Banerjee. So taking up from where you left is about mental health. We talk about mental health, but it's very important for us to understand what does this mentum, what does this mind include? So if we look into the mental health perspectives, we basically are looking into concepts of thought, we are looking into emotions, we are looking into human behavior, we are looking into perception, what we perceive. We watch the magicians play with our perception. They take us through certain illusionary experiences, and we tend to believe in what they show us at that point of time. We know fully well that a person cannot be cut into 10 parts and then the body again rejoined within a few seconds, like the magician shows us. And they call themselves as illusionists these days because they create that magical illusion. And that is something to do with perception. So mind also engulfs perception as an important aspect. Another important aspect is about judgment. And I think Dr. Banerjee did refer to it while she gave the initial address about difference between, I think, wisdom and intelligence. Judgment is ability to take, or make the right kind of decisions at the right point of time, which is in keeping with maybe the social context, the personal context of an individual. So when we are talking about judgment, it's how you look at the situation and what are you able to make the most out of it is something which is important. And in today's age and this moment that we are living in, unprecedented times of pandemic, a lot would depend on how we view it, how we process this information in our mind, and how we find ways to do something positive, creative, and perhaps take due precautions during this phase, which again would talk about judgment as a parameter. Orientation and concentration would be other parameters of mental health. So mental health is huge. It's a huge area. And when we say mental health, it goes beyond the brain, beyond the upper limits of the mind that we talk about. It also engulfs interactions between mind and the body. It also engulfs area of sleep, which is very important. So these are all various ramifications. So mind extends beyond the brain. It doesn't limit itself to the brain. It also includes certain perceptions that we talk about. It also engulfs certain bodily symptoms. So if, say, for example, if a person is quite anxious and stressed, that person might be suffering from irritable bowel at the same time. That person might have sweaty extremities or cold, clammy extremities. That person may develop goosebumps on the skin. So those kind of things do happen. That person might have palpitations. So what is it? It's the mind working at that point of time. Perhaps mind feeling the stress at that point of time, which is reflected in the body. So there's a very strong link between mind and the body. And in our psychological and psychiatric clinical jargons, we call it as psychosomatic medicine, where psyche means your mind and soma means your body. So it's the interlink between your mind and the body. And we say that the interlink happens through a set of neurochemicals, through a set of hormones, and also through our immune system. And these days in COVID times, we are always talking about building the immune system. So it has an important role to play. If the mind is relaxed, if the mind is somewhat sorted, clear, it would reflect in building immunity as well, alongside other aspects that we understand of our mind. So from here on, I take you through this process of perhaps talking about mind and how it gets stressed and what little measures could we adopt as an individual to help ourselves feel somewhat in control. So let's come to this terminology of stress. We use it very often. You know, the extra work, we feel stressed. Not able to sleep properly, we feel stressed. Little things that you have to do outside your realm of life or routine practice makes you feel stressed. We talk about stress in different ways, different domains, and different manifestations. So stress could be either manifested in a thought process, which is how you think at that point of time, how you express yourself at that point of time, and what you go through within yourself, both in terms of your mind and in terms of your body. So there's a biological aspect of stress as well. So when we are talking about stress, it's like a challenging situation. And it's up to us what we make out of it. Like Dr. Banerjee referred, a lot depends on how you view this situation. You might come up with very constructive ideas. You might come up with inventions during this period. You might come up with ways of dealing with the situation better. And that is something which evolves when we take any stress as a challenge. Two ways of looking at it. Either you make it in a positive way, or you start thinking about how stressed you are. It's very difficult. The situation is very, very gloomy. It's a pandemic, unprecedented. We keep on hearing the news. We keep on seeing all the negatives which are coming up with regards to COVID. There are many kind of fake news also which are on WhatsApp groups, and we tend to just kind of blow things out of proportion in our mind at times, not realizing that we are making our abilities and our coping abilities limited at that point of time, and we are exaggerating the situation beyond its own magnitude. So it's not just a physical pandemic that we are facing in terms of the infection. We are also simultaneously facing the way people are reacting, looking at it, and perhaps absorbing that information. So there's a parallel mental pandemic going on across the world. When you see and hear these news of the biggest of economies finding it very hard, when you hear these news of the best of medical facilities faltering, I mean, there are many skeptical thoughts which do happen in our head, which is quite natural at that point of time, but that takes you through a downward spiral. Which brings me to another area of mind health, which is to do with your own concept of self, your concept of viewing the situation as factually correct as possible, your ability to process information in your mind to its relevant level, not going into the irrelevant, intricate, unnecessary details, and being able to find a solution-based approach rather than just thinking about the problem and magnifying it beyond proportions of control. What helps you in terms of stress management is the ability to control a little bit. When you feel you are able to control yourself, you are able to sail through, you are able to take it in a positive way, and you are able to bring in the best out of you, we say this stress is eustress, because it is helping you take out the best in you. It is helping you reach your optimum potential, both in terms of your abilities to think, rationalize, emote, and resolve. So those are areas which are considered to be good, and they help you improve your own self, develop your own coping abilities. But then there's a point where you feel you cannot take it anymore. And that level where you feel distressed, where you get dysfunctional, where you get chaotic, where you may enter into a danger zone of harming yourself or maybe posing a threat to others around you, that becomes a point of concern or distress or dis-ease. When you're not at ease, it leads to dis-ease, right? So that is the area which is a difficult area, and that needs to be sorted. And two ways we can deal with it. One, not reaching that point of distress, so preventive steps. The other is, how do we manage once we are in that mode of distress, right? So we first think about what are the areas which perhaps help us in terms of taking the stress in a positive, challenging way. I'll give you a simple example. We celebrate a birthday, and each year when the birthday comes, there's a build-up of excitement. Before that, you want people to wish you on that particular day, and with social networking and WhatsApp, you're looking at how many messages have I received, how many calls did I get, how many emojis did I get that day, how many people got to send me those flowers and those virtual cakes that day. There are many things which you are looking at. That excitement is building up. You're enjoying your day that day. You are enjoying that day with your family, with your friends, and you feel good about it. But in reality, you're cutting 1 year short of your life. Usually people do not go that way of thinking that, oh my God, 1 year lost, one further year lost. And then you become sulking, and then you become low in your mood, you become disturbed, and you're quite negative in your thought process. So that is the distressing mode of thinking. The other one is a positive way of taking situations and enjoying the journey of life. I often say life is not about reaching destinations, it's a journey. So it is up to you how comfortable, how enjoyable, how passionate, like Dr. Banerjee just said, how passionate you can make your journey of life. It's very important. I'll give you another example. Say, for example, we are having a train ride, right? And it's a journey. And we have to reach a particular place. And usually trains are late. So when you are waiting and you're not able to reach your point in time, and this happens very, very often, when a train is getting delayed at a particular platform, there are some people who will keep an eye on their watch and become very fidgety and restless and start getting into a blame game of maybe blaming the railway system, blaming the government, blaming the overall coordination process and why people do get late. So that kind of a blame game doesn't help them, isn't it? It might create that negative vibes within them, and that might create a negative kind of environment with fellows whom they are traveling with. So that is a negative way of looking at the situation, not enjoying it, feeling restless, feeling miserable, feeling as a victim of circumstances, where they get into a self-victimization mode by blaming the other person. So when you blame the other person, when you blame the external situation, things go beyond your control. And when you start losing control, you start feeling low, you start feeling helpless, you start feeling frustrated, irritable, angry. So all set of negative emotions prop up in your mind. That's the power of thinking. That's the power of dealing with situations. But the other way of looking at it is a person who's maybe reading a newspaper, gets down at the platform, picks up on maybe a dialogue with a person or two, enjoys a cup of tea, gets a flavor of that place where he did not intend to go initially, but happened to be in because of the circumstances, and gets a flavor of the journey itself. This kind of a person would also like to interact with people around and get to know more about them and make this journey pleasant, enjoyable, wherein the time has been filled in with things which are positive, which are constructive, and things which are in his or her own control. So here, this person has tried to cope with that stress in a positive way, in an adaptive way, which we call as adaptive coping. And I think life is just like that. It's like a train journey, and wherein it's up to you how you enjoy the process. We never expected pandemic to happen, but now that it has happened, there are certain things which are in our control. Rather than blaming the government, rather than blaming the systems, rather than blaming the medical authorities, rather than getting too much into those trivial details which are not our domain of expertise, we should rather look at things that we can control, we can sort out for ourselves. And the very important thing, like I said, in mental health is your sleep. So make sure that you are sleeping in time, because now there is less of a structure to a day. Earlier, we had to rush to our colleges, rush to our workplace in the morning. Now, most of the people are homebound and they're working from home or they're attending online classes. So make sure that you have ample sleep at night, because sleep plays a restorative function. It helps in rejuvenation. It helps in churning unnecessary information out of your system. It helps in building your immune system. So sleep is very important. And what people have known is that the best sleep happens from 11 to about 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. So the first sleep tide comes at about 11 o'clock at night, because that's the time when hypothalamus, sitting here in the brain, is responsible for stimulating the pineal gland to release melatonin. Melatonin is one such substance which helps in inducing sleep. And it is very important for us to kind of make sure that we ride the first sleep tide, because if we miss on the first sleep tide, then the next significant release of melatonin happens around 3 or 4 o'clock in the wee hours of the morning, I would say. So that's That's the kind of second sleep tide which a person should try to avoid. We should catch the first sleep tide. That is the reason why most of the accidents on road happen between 3 and 4 o'clock around that time, because people are feeling very drowsy at the time when they are driving simultaneously. So very important that we follow the rhythm of the body. Hypothalamus is also one area of the brain which is responsible for thermoregulation. That means it controls your body temperature. It is also very important to control your emotions. So the emotional system, or we call it as a limbic system of the brain, also has hypothalamus as an important player. And hypothalamus is also very important as a biological clock. So people, when they travel time zones, they feel jet lagged. This happens because of the phase delay or phase advance in their sleep patterns, which happens because of, again, the hypothalamus. So we should follow the biological rhythm of the body. It is very important to follow this biological rhythm, and this biological rhythm has to be in sync with the environmental rhythm. Let me give you an example. It's like if you are listening to a beautiful piece of music, wonderful piece of music, there are different kinds of orchestra, different instruments which are playing at that point of time, and these instruments have to be in sync at the same wavelength with each other. वो तालमेल होना चाहिए. अगर एक साज भी गलत बजता है बीच में, if any tune goes out of the normal flow, it creates a kind of noise which goes beyond the beauty and the wonder created by the music or that piece of music. So very important, we have to understand that our brain also has certain set of neurochemicals. All these neurochemicals are so very closely intertwined and interrelated that if we play with one and we increase one beyond proportions, it can have a disturbing effect on the rest, and it creates a very difficult environment inside us. And if there's a difficult environment inside us, it leads to a difficult interaction, different kinds of behaviors, and overall it leads to decrease in our health potential or abilities. So very important that we understand the relevance of the mind. Very important that we understand the relevance of self-discipline. Self-discipline would mean follow the environmental and biological rhythm. Don't go against the tide all the time. Because these days with technology and all those things, technology has great advantage. That is the reason why we are able to connect also today. We are able to meet on this platform. So thanks to technology. But at the same time, excessive use. Many times we go to bed with mobile phones in hand, and we tend to kind of surf areas which are not even required to be surfed. And we tend to lose a lot of our sleep because of this. Although we do sleep late, we then tend to get up late. Maybe we don't feel that fresh in the morning. Our eyes are aching. At times our neck is aching. There's a bad posture that we adopt many times. So all those things stand in the way of good mental health. So very important, we should lead a little disciplined lifestyle. We did talk about work-life balance. I think Dr. Madhukar did refer to it in the beginning. And I think that is very important in today's age and particularly stage of life that we are all in. Because if we maintain a good kind of routine to our day, and there is some meaning and some purpose to our life which is defined, like Dr. Banerjee just pointed out in the beginning, then life becomes more fulfilling. You have something to look forward to the next day, which becomes very important. There's another area of our thought processes which I wanted to discuss, and the power of the thinking, which I think is very important. The way we think. I gave you one example of the journey in a train, but then there are many, many other kind of areas which are involved when we are processing any piece of information. And remember, whatever you think is also based on your belief system. It is also based on what you've seen, heard about issues in your immediate surroundings, in your family, the kind of cultural beliefs that we hold on to, the kind of moral beliefs that we hold. So many, many such belief systems influence our thought process. And our thought process is something which happens between a situation and our response or reaction. Our response and reaction could be through body language, majority of it, and also through our words that we speak and the emotions that we display. So in between those emotional responses or behavioral responses and the situation, For a fraction of a second, we have certain thoughts which run through our head. Now, it depends on those thoughts more than the situation as to how we are going to deal with this situation and behave or emote. So always remember there's a small link, and this link is very important. It's a very strong link between the emotions and our situations. So rather than jumping on to finding flaws in the situations, we should look at what we can do to counter the negative thoughts which are cropping up. So many cognitive behaviorists who worked across the world have narrowed down certain kinds of cognitive distortions. Distortion means a bad way of thinking. Cognitive distortion is a bad way of thinking or a negative thought process. So those themes they've been able to identify. I'll give you examples. It's like minimization is one, where you minimize your ability to deal with the situation. The other one is magnification. Magnification would mean you magnify the situation beyond proportions, and you feel that now it has become so difficult to handle it. So that situation becomes unsurmountable and very, very difficult. The third one is labeling. We are very quick to judge. We are very quick to react. And when we become judgmental and too judgmental, we are not able to get the factually correct information, and we don't give enough time to our brain or our mind to process that information to the advantage of ourselves, our family, and the society at large. So it is important for us to not put in a label there and then and not jump to conclusions. The other one is selective abstraction, where you selectively abstract something negative and you overgeneralize it and blow it out of proportions. So when we do that, we use selective abstraction and overgeneralization simultaneously. So these are the cognitive distortions which are quite common: minimization, magnification, dichotomous thinking, overgeneralization, selective abstraction, labeling. And we should try and avoid these kind of cognitive distortions. They would happen. It's quite natural to have those kind of thoughts because they also serve a self-protective function at times. So whenever we are facing an imminent threat or a potential threat, the negative kind of thoughts make you aware, alert. So your HPA axis, which we call as hypothalamo, pituitary, and adrenal axis, becomes active for you to create a fight or a flight response to save yourself. So it's like a survival instinct, nothing bad. But so long as you need to evaluate the situation, that it is really a fight and flight situation, or can we do something better without harming ourselves and without harming the environment? Can we find a solution to this problem? And that approach, shifting from problem, from external factors, to perhaps a problem-solving approach, to solutions, and what you could do at your level without the need to externalize blame and finding blame in others. That's the kind of role that your mind can play, and that's the kind of power of positive thinking and the ability to release that stress and cope with the same situation in a better way. So always remember the power of thinking. The power of discipline I talked about earlier, wherein you the discipline, you have a little structure to your day, you exercise well, you eat healthy, you sleep in time, you maintain a good body posture, you engage in some regular exercise, yoga, meditation. All these things are important. So that sense of discipline, sense of purpose, the power of purpose, very important. I don't know how many of us have read this book by Viktor Frankl, who was an ace psychiatrist of his times. After this book is on man's search for meaning. And he came up with a concept of logotherapy, where he says people who, he talks about the concentration camp experience, where he himself was placed in one of the concentration camps of his times, and how each day was so very difficult to live. But what he found was people who survived that horrific episode or period were the ones who had even a little purpose defined in their life, so small as having a cup of coffee once they return back home with their family members. So keep that hope, keep that optimism always alive. Faith, hope, optimism are great healers and great friends, and their company should never be lost. Then we have the power of judgment, which is very important, taking the wise decisions. People may be very intelligent. They might have a great IQ, but they might falter when it comes to social quotient. They might falter when it comes to emotional quotient. So judgment is that wisdom which is required in today's age and stage of life. So we have ample technological knowledge, but how to use it wisely, how to use it to the advantage and mutual benefit, not only of yourself, your family, but also of the society that we live in, wherein we can perhaps use the same technology for good rather than for harm. Very important concept which I thought I would discuss is the concept of self. You know, the first relationship that a person has, these days people talk about relationship issues and not many problems happening. I think the first important relationship is with your own self. That's the first relationship. If there's a problem in that relationship, then that problem is going to manifest in all other relationships that you share. Today it could be your fiancé, your friend. Tomorrow it could be your other family members. It could be perhaps the place where you are studying, the university, maybe your colleagues tomorrow where you work, maybe your seniors, maybe your subordinates. So it is then going to percolate. But remember, the problem is not outside there. The problem is somewhere within us, where we are not able to curtail it and control it and regulate our own self. So our own relationship with our own self is somewhat jeopardized. That is something which you need to first understand. When I say relationship with yourself, remember any relationship survives on a simple formula of give, 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 give. Take less. When I say give, 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 give this sense of purpose to yourself. Give this sense of discipline to yourself. Give this sense of responsibility to yourself. Give rest to your body adequately in time, following the body and the environmental clock. These things are important. Exercise. Release those positive endorphins and kephalins and opiates that we talk about. These things will build your level of immunity and you be happy by also building on your thought processes which are more positive. So whenever you're feeling low, whenever you're feeling anxious, whenever you're feeling restless, whenever you're feeling irritable, whenever you're feeling jealous, whenever you're comparing yourself with others, whenever you're not feeling happy because of achievements of others, ask yourself, what is the thought in your head that is making you feel that way? And try to identify the thought, try to rectify and resolve it there, rather than suppressing it, or rather than succumbing to that thought and doing something stupid or negative to yourself or to your environment. I think that's the part of relationship that you should share with yourself. Then your concept of self, I'll just give you a little brief on that concept of self, wherein we are talking about, I'm wary of the time, so I'll try to match both. Wherein the concept of time is also important when we talk about discipline and your concept of self. But the other thing there is your definition of self. Your definition of self is very important. Is it only me skin deep? And is it only instinctual drives that I need to fulfill? So whether it's hunger, whether it's anger, whether it's sexual drive, I just need that at any cost. Or is it to do with your concept of morality? Is it to do with your concept of responsibility, not only towards yourself, but towards your immediate environment, your family, your kith and kin, your nation, and the world at large? So remember, the more me we get, a me feeling, skin deep, instinctual, the more distressing it gets over a period of time. But the more we become in our approach, the more comfort we create for ourselves and the environment. In the process, we learn to give more, expect less. Must have read, must have come across, more expectations lead to more agony and more distress. So we say replace expectations with acceptance. That's one formula to carry home. Replace expectations with acceptance. If at all you have to expect rationally from your own self first. That's your first relationship. So are you fulfilling those expectations out of your own self? If you have planned your next day in a certain little way, don't put too much of pressure, but some little way, and try to fulfill those. So that way you undercommit you overperform. That builds up motivation, that builds up your desire, your passion to work more in that field. There's one concept of success which I thought is important in today's age and stage of life that we all live in. Success, when we ask youngsters, and many people have come across this, and I think you would also agree to it, would be making quick money. It's about fame, having a name, and maximum money to our disposal. But believe me, I'm not just saying for the sake of saying. I've spent almost more than 2 decades, almost 25, 26 years in the field. And when I come across people from all strata. I've worked both in India as well as abroad. And I've seen people from the poorest of backgrounds, and I've seen people from the richest. I've seen the entire strata over these years. What I've learned is people who have enough name, who have made enough money, who have risen very quick in their career are not necessarily the happiest in the world. Because for them, success is something different. For others, success is what they do not possess. For them, success is again something different because they're looking for internal happiness. They're looking for meaningful relationships because they feel people are getting connected to them, or whosoever, if at all, is looking after them is only looking after them for their name and for their money, not for the person that they are, not for the individual that they are. And they have very few friends at times when they reach that point to share, to understand, to interact, and to enjoy that level that they have achieved in terms of their career and in terms of their money part. So remember, it's not just about money. It's not just about a powerful position that you hold. It's not just about, having your dreams of that nature come true. It is about sustaining the very fabric of trust in relationships. It's that fine, intricate balance between work and family, work and self, empowering yourself, doing something which is meaningful, not without purpose, just to make quick bucks fast. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't give you internal satisfaction, because success would ultimately be a point where you feel contented, where you feel I've been able to do what I wanted to do with my life. There are no regrets at that point of time. And if you look back, it feels like the life was worth a journey that I lived. Remember, that is one thing that you cannot run away from. And that's something that you should nurture each moment. Keep that long-term vision of contentment in mind whenever you're doing any work, and try to do it mindfully. These days we have this concept of mindfulness, wherein we say you should be cognizant, you should be aware of what is happening inside you and what is happening externally. But don't be judgmental that quick. Don't put a label that quick. And don't react very quick. I also heard one of the wonderful speakers say, and relate to one of his life experiences, wherein he was told that anything which comes out of our body smells, stinks. Whether it's a breath, whether it is a sweat, whether it's your urine or a stool that comes out of your body, it stinks. The only thing which perhaps can stink and pain and can provide solace and fragrance is your speech. That is in your control. There are certain concepts of mind which are in your control. Behavior and speech is something. Body language is another. Ability to process your thoughts is another. Hold on, understand the situation, look at it holistically, weigh pros and cons, maintain a clear mindset so that you remain sorted at that point of time to be able to resolve that conflict zone. Coming to the COVID experience and the time, very shortly in 2-3 minutes, I would like to wind it up and then open it for questions coming from your end. I think which is very important is how we look at this COVID situation. There are many positives which are happening simultaneously. There are certain negatives which surely are happening, are being addressed to by the medical fraternity as much as they can. So when we look at the positive aspects, people have more time to themselves. When they have more time to themselves, they can utilize it in the way they want it to, For so many years, they were in this rat race, not getting enough time to sit and pursue some hobby, some passion, or do their work with passion. Because there was this maddening race, there was so much of time spent in commuting, and you would end up feeling exhausted by the end of the day. Now you have enough time, so you can make the most of it. Then people were not able to connect to their family and friends that well. You have ample time to connect to your family and friends now. But when we get to see each other too much at home, and we are unnecessarily intruding into the territories of others, and we are being critical in our comments, we are being less mindful, more judgmental, more expressive, and more reactive to situations in a critical and hostile way, then the same atmosphere can become pathetic and painful and disastrous. So what you have in your hand is not the situation, but how you process your thought process, how you use your wisdom, and how you do and deal with the situation mindfully. That becomes very important at that time. Sense of self-discipline, you could always regulate your sleep-wake cycle. You're not being told when to sleep, when to get up. It's now in your hands. We've discussed the scientific aspects. Make sure you follow your body clock. There might be an argument from the other end saying, but my body clock works the other way around. That is something that you have conditioned it to. You need to now recondition it to the environmental clock, because we are all receptive and expressive individuals, and it's a two-way relationship with the environment. We can't do without the environment, right? So our hypothalamus needs to get its due rest and its due importance for it to regulate our emotions and our thought processes in a better way. So with those little comments, I would say let's open it for discussion, for comments, your end. I just couldn't touch upon certain areas of mental illness and disease. Maybe through the question answer session, I would try to talk about those. It's important to identify persons with depression, with anxiety disorders. If you, your family, anybody is suffering from, not to make fun of it, not to stigmatize it, but to understand that any one of us can be affected with psychiatric ailments, just like any one of us can be affected with a physical ailment. And rather than putting the blame on that person, or rather than making that person a laughing stock, we need to understand that that person needs a confidential approach, an empathic approach at that point of time, and a timely medical and psychological intervention, so that we are able to help that person out of the situation that a person has landed himself or herself in. And remember, since I'm not immune, my family is not immune, nobody in the world is immune, then we have to have that eye of empathy. It's not that I can never be involved, I can never be harmed psychologically, any one of us, because we're all very vulnerable when it comes to the mind. Rather, mind vulnerabilities create more disastrous effects versus a physical disability, right? So we need to focus on our mental health, because it should get its due importance. Brain is placed on the top. Most of it is regulated by the brain, and then its ramifications. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Malhotra. Thank you, Dr. Malhotra. Although you have very well explained and briefed the all-important aspect pertaining to the topic, however, there are few questions I can see in Q&A and chat box. So allow me to quickly take few of them.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a one question. Is by Dr. Sharma from the business school. He has written, how to avoid overthinking as it affects the sleeping pattern. Suggest some technique other than meditation.
Other than meditation, okay.
Other than meditation.
Okay. See, what happens is when we retire to bed for sleeping, then it's towards the fag end of the day, and there are many things which happen in the day which we tend to recollect and recall at that point of time. It's very natural. One thing that I would suggest is never ever try to stop the thought patterns. It's like pressing a spring. You press a spring hard, it props up, right? So if I tell you not to think about a red colored flower, the first thing that comes to your mind is a red colored flower, because our mind is trained into do's. It is not trained into do nots. So if I say do not park your car here, the first thought and the image that you create in your head is parking the car there, and then you put a cross on top of it. So when we look into the concepts of NLP or neuro-linguistic programming, we say mind is trained into do's. It's not trained into do nots. So the more you want those thoughts to go away, at times they prop up. The only way of sorting them out somewhat would be by fixing a time which is defined as a bedtime. Now I'm going to retire to bed at this hour. I'm going to be up at about at this hour in the morning, irrespective of whether I was able to sleep or not sleep. Because many times people want to chase sleep and it becomes like a mirage. The more you chase it, the more elusive it gets, the more difficult it gets, and more worry about not being able to sleep. And that worry stimulates your system and sympathetic overtone, which leads to more thought processes, more worries, more ruminations, like we say, one thought linked to another. It's like a never-ending chain of thoughts, which leads to more distress and not being able to sleep. So you end up feeling mentally exhausted and tired. Other simple tips. One is fix a time. Bedtime is what I'm talking about. The second thing is use the bed only for sleeping. So do not do anything which is very stimulating in terms of maybe having a mobile in hand, going into certain areas which you are surfing. It stimulates the mind because you are giving a wrong signal to the hypothalamus. On one hand, the hypothalamus, the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus, is stimulating the pineal gland to release melatonin. On the other hand, we are trying to make it wakeful. So we are basically coming in the way of normal flow of neurochemicals and hormones in the system at that point of time. So follow the body rhythm. So make it as comfortable as possible in bed. The third would be, there are some people who are not lactose. Most of the people are not lactose intolerant. So people who have no allergies to milk, there's no harm having a warm cup of milk before going to bed, because milk is a rich source of an amino acid tryptophan. That tryptophan gets converted into 5-hydroxytryptamine, which is serotonin. And that serotonin is something which is known to help in sleep. So that also helps. Then we say, do not drink coffee or any stimulating drink late in the evenings, because that can again stand in the way of your sleep. What I'm talking about is basically sleep hygiene tips. Then 3 or 4 days of regulated time in bed would make you more comfortable and conditioned in a way to sleep in that particular time frame. Avoid daytime naps. If there is some thought which lies unresolved, try to resolve it in the daytime. So just make a note of it, maybe in a register, in a copy. And you know what happens is, when we think we are exhausted with our thoughts, we feel there are innumerable thoughts in the brain. When we start enlisting them, you make a list of those, you'll be able to identify 3-4 key themes. And then those are themes which you need to perhaps address through action or through perhaps positive self-talks, right? So those are different ways. But then there are also people who are suffering from obsessive ruminations, wherein obsession is defined as any recurrent, intrusive, distressing thought which you know is absurd. You want to get rid of it, but you're not able to. If that is the condition, then that may also require mental treatment, psychiatric treatment, correct that particular thought from coming again and again in your mind. And the other thing would be, at times we use this thought stopping technique, wherein we tend to kind of give a painful stimulus, not very painful, but little painful stimulus when that thought is coming, which you don't want to come into your head. So what you're doing knowingly, unknowingly, is you create a kind of conditioning effect of that particular thought with a painful stimulus. And anything which is associated with pain tends to recede. So there are different ways of managing it. Physical exercise in the daytime, so that you feel physically exhausted by the time you are in bed, then you sleep better. So that's the reason why laborers sleep better. And do not create a magnifying effect of those thoughts in your mind. Do not make a mountain out of the mole. So try to basically factually weigh pros and cons of any thought which is hitting you again and again, whether it is really worth considering or not. The other thing is a vacuum. When we have a vacuum in the mind, it tends to get filled up with too many thoughts at that point of time. But when your mind is engaged into something, actively engaged into something which is positive, which is constructive, then you are less likely to run through many thoughts. People can also, recite a mantra, which can also help. Music can also help for sleeping. And when you're using music, it should not be something which is very peppy and stimulating. It should be something which is calming and light. It could be mild piano, or it could be something to do with flute. So those kind of things help. Otherwise, there are medications also which can be given for a short period of time.
Yeah, yes, Dr. Malhotra, thank you. There is another question by Dr. Niti Chatterjee. She has written, is it possible to bring about a confluence between ambition, achievement, and peace of mind? Because when we try to get one, it normally comes at the cost of other.
Okay, it's an interesting question. So she talks about ambition, she talks about achievement.
And peace of mind.
Okay. See, these are all overlapping. I don't see them as extremely opposite. Peace of mind would not mean no ambition. If there's no problem, no ambition, then what's the purpose of this life? Right? But there's a difference between ambition and over-ambition. When we say over-ambition, anything in excess is bad. Over-ambition is something which takes you in that parabolic, kind of graph that we talked about, eustress and then distress. It takes you towards distress. You're going beyond your realms of control and understanding of yourself and your ability. But yes, ambition drives you to the optimum best that you can achieve out of yourself and out of your environment. So long as you make this journey with a peace of mind, not by losing your peace of mind and making it chaotic. Problems have arisen in this COVID pandemic because of the chaos which has been created. We hear different kinds of news coming all over. Every person has become a doctor these days, isn't it? So people we have stepped out of our roles, our boundaries, and got into areas which are not areas of our domain or understanding. And with that limited information, it is at times blown out of proportions. There's sensationalism in the news at times, and things go out of hand and out of control. So over-ambition, not correct. Ambition, important. With peace of mind, very important. And achievement, or a sense of achievement. Achievement is not just about monetary goals. It's not just about reaching a destination point. Tell me something. If a person reaches a destination point, say for example, any most successful businessman in the world, if that is what success is, if you ask that person, how many destination points of achievement did he achieve in his life? And how many days did he enjoy those destination points? Maybe a week, maybe a month. Say you wanted to get into this business school, you got into it. How many days did you party for being into the school? And once you are here, you say so many people who are here with you, just like you, right? After a certain time, you're looking for a good job outside. You find that good job. You enjoy that for a week, for a month, for 2 months, for 6 months, but will you keep on blowing that trumpet throughout your life? No. So you lose that, isn't it, after a while? So it is about constant issues coming up, looking forward, creating a meaning and purpose to whatever you have in your hand, right? Having some vision, some sense of direction. That is very, very important. So ambition with focus, with peace of mind, sense of direction, passion, and hard work, which makes you feel, yes, it's worth living it, is achievable, and that is what achievement would be.
In fact, I want to add here, very interesting thoughts. I really am tempted to add here that this is whole concept of, what Aristotle brought about eudaimonic well-being. When your purpose in life, for example, your aspiration, ambition, achievement, and you have a larger purpose in life. So you will see people like, say, Mother Teresa or, Vivekananda. So they had such a big purpose in life. Or even, say, Tagore, who traveled to so many countries with his own work, for which he got a Nobel Prize. The purpose becomes so big that through that purpose, you receive well-being and peace of mind.
Absolutely.
I think something that, each one have to reflect. So you cannot have bits and pieces of achievement. It should be a bigger whole, purpose. Yeah, where it itself starts giving you that happiness.
Yes,
and every time you're successful, So I think in some way you need to rephrase it. So more taking back to a larger purpose, then having those small mission which becomes your ambition and aspiration. And please celebrate each of your achievements, because they say a person who is able to accomplish and celebrate it, they have a larger purpose. It becomes self-actualization. So you will see it in artists. You will see it in people who are making music or creating movies, or even a psychiatrist or a psychologist, that every small case that you do, you're moving towards your, purpose, your self-actualization. So I think a great question, but I thought I must share with you.
Absolutely. And another example, just to take it forward from there, another example is you get a mathematical question and it's a tough one. You spend a lot of time analyzing it, and once you find the solution, it gives you a sense of satisfaction and achievement. So life is full of problems. Problems would always be there. We cannot get rid of problems because many people have said that if there are no problems, then there's no life. So life will have problems. Learn to solve them. Learn to enjoy having solved them. Enjoyment with your colleagues, your friends, your family, and then look forward to further issues which are there and try to resolve them. So it's a constant sense of being able to resolve. It's a constant drive within you. It's a constant quest to learn, which is very important. And that passion should always be alive. Yes, the mission should be holistic. It should be a bigger picture, a bigger goal, not just including yourself. That concept of self should include a we feeling over a me feeling. Once you think about others around you, you empathize, you are able to be more inclusive in your thoughts, then you feel better, then you have more to give. Even bringing a little smile on somebody else's face gives you a sense of purpose, a sense of mission, a sense of achievement, which is very important. And as a psychiatrist, as a doctor, as a therapist, what I understand is it's not just the money that I get from the patient. It is the kind of a smile and the feel that they convey that it was worth going through this journey with you. And thank you, Doc. You were able to resolve it. You were able to help us resolve it. And we are able to now think much better. And had we come earlier, it would have been, we could have saved those 2-3 years. And I said, just forget about that. You have ample now time to score further. So don't you worry. And I think that gives you a sense of purpose, a sense of mission accomplished, that, right, I took the right discipline. I took a discipline where I could help somebody and I'm doing it passionately. And I think that is more important. That keeps you alive. I can work wee hours, up to wee hours of the morning at times, but it's your passion that drives you to that level of work. Wherein the work doesn't bring in that stress. You start enjoying it because you're doing it as a sense of meditation, as a sense of self-regulation, as a sense of self-discipline, and as a sense of passion and purpose.
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Malhotra, there are a lot of questions and it becomes difficult for me to pick which one to take because we have already 3:30, we've crossed 3:30, but I'll take last one question, which I think is important. This question has been asked by Mr. Ankur Gupta, who is handling our corporate resource center, where he has written, my question is how one can maintain the balance of mental well-being in this time of pandemic, and how students from our business school who will be in the middle of starting their career may keep themselves motivated in the uncertain time and maintain their calm in anticipation of the rise of new hopes and possibility in coming days. So particularly this question has been asked from the student perspective. So what is your message for them?
That is a very relevant question. I think one would be self-regulation and self-discipline, because this is the time when we have ample time to ourselves. It is up to us how we regulate it, how we use it. So you should structure your day to some extent. There should be some time set for going to bed, getting up in the morning. There should be some time set aside for exercise. There should be some time set for your assignments, for your self-study at this point of time, and create those ideas. Take some time out to create certain positive thoughts in your mind, wherein you define some purpose, some new ideas, something new that you can do to help yourself and others around. I think that also helps alongside. And if you have this little structure to your day, you feel more in control. Then follow all the due precautions which are being told to prevent the spread of the infection, which includes your hand hygiene, which includes wearing those masks. Don't go irresponsibly shopping in malls. This is something which is not recommended. Going to cinema halls or places where you have large number of people gathering unnecessarily. Maintain the social distance, which is very important because the transmission route is through droplets. That's something that we need to be aware of. This is unprecedented. It's a gray area and it's a very huge blank slate in your hands. A lot depends on how you fill this up at this point of time. Rather than just blaming the environment, blaming the infection, blaming the new lifestyle, we need to learn to live with this new lifestyle of ours, wherein we define more meaning, more purpose, and start enjoying within our home. Many times, this enjoyment was being defined over the last few years as going outside. So if you want to have fun, you have to go outside. You need to visit an adventure park. You need to go and watch a movie. You need to go to a restaurant. Now we have to define new ways of enjoying with family, with friends, through this technology at times, and perhaps also by self-regulation and a sense of self-discipline. Those are things which are important.
In fact, Dr. Malhotra has made some very pertinent points in his talk in the last almost 45 minutes. He's talked about regulating your, not only your sleep cycle, but regulating your thoughts. So I think most of the questions I could quickly read. I must tell you that in times of crisis, we all get into that negative thinking, which is saying that you need to possibly sometimes physically stop by saying stop. Or similarly, what you can also do is we have a tendency to get into catastrophic thinking. So one negative thought makes you getting into that hole, that black hole, and you constantly get tied up with those thoughts. I think one has to avoid that catastrophic thinking, and more so for the youth of our nation, because this is the time to create. This is the time to make, new, you should be the agents of change. So specifically to the school, students of not only the business school, all our students of the university, one message is this is also a time to, co-create. And like Dr. Malhotra also spoke about, that you have more time in your disposal. So you're able to reflect about your life. You're able to make a right decision. Sometimes some people have changed their careers middle of their life, and they have done their undergraduation, and then they realize that no, this is not for me. I want to get into another career. So these are the time for also reflection. So if you spend less time on only getting into the news, what are the uncertain time, what is going to happen to the government policies, although we are very excited to see that we are moving into an unlock period, but we know that unlock is really not going to be the freedom of the way we were having our lives. And I think all of the suggestions and information that has been shared by Dr. Malhotra are going to be extremely useful to all of us, very practical ideas. And within a short span of 1 hour, I was amazed that you often do not find a good mix of a psychiatrist and also a great, academician. So we found that in him. So extremely useful points. And most of his content, when I was looking at the questions, he has answered most of these questions. So thank you, Dr. Malhotra, for such an insightful discussion that we've had today.
Thank you so much. And we also run, I thought we'll just use this platform to also share this information, that we also run a platform wherein we are providing internship trainings and perhaps observership trainings to students who might be interested in the field of psychology as a kind of collaborative effort that goes on alongside our clinical realm that we work on.
Great.
And I think many inventions are happening around this time from the young minds. People have come up with simple ventilators which were not easily available earlier. We have low-cost ventilators being manufactured in our country in-house. People are coming up with ways of maintaining social distancing. There are many ways people are coming up with new inventions with respect to masks. There are so many new things which are happening. People have started using technology for going online for many other issues, be it learning, be it many other modalities. So there are many modules which are coming up. So there are many ways of looking at life from a different perspective. It's a new COVID lifestyle which we are adopting to. And I think it's a huge scope for them, huge realm of opportunity for them to make the most of it, rather than feeling threatened and feeling insecure and going towards that dark circle or point that you just talked about.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Malhotra. Thanks again for such an insightful session. And I'm very much agree with you what we have spoken in the last, that there's so much invention which is coming out. And in our university also, we have an incubation center where already we had many projects which are on advanced stage pertaining to helping the COVID-19 situation. We have researchers, those they are in process of developing a low-cost ventilator. They are in the process of developing a kit for coronavirus, and also there are work going on antimicrobial face mask also. So there's a lot of initiative has been taken in the university, and though I wanted to take many more questions, but there is a message from the IT that we've already exceeded our time limit. So such a wonderful session. Thank you for being here once again. On behalf of Hamilton University, we are really thankful and grateful to you, and thank you to you, Dr. Padmakali Madam, to be here and sharing your thought. And thanks to all participants, thanks to faculty members, staff, and students. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr.